Hello everybody. This is going to be a video process of my painting, which you see here. It is kind of long, so I apologize for that. I also want to let you know that it's not going to be up to this exact point. I ended up getting some feedbacks from some of my art friends, and then I went back to it and made the appropriate changes. It's nothing major. The video when I play it will be pretty much up to this point. It'll just be what you won't see is the adjustment layers, a few additional details that I add later. I'd also like to say that I'm not an expert. I'm still learning a lot of things. Every time I create a new painting, I learn something new. So, take it with a grain of salt. I mean, you can use this for personal observation if you'd like, or if you learned something from this, that's awesome. I'm glad that I could at least help in that way. But I haven't ascended to the god level yet. So I'm sure there's mistakes. Actually, I'm positive there's mistakes somewhere here and there, and I could have spent a lot more time on the background if I had the time to do it. But I like to not spend more than I need to on a painting. I feel like if I start a new painting, I'll learn more that way because I'll go back and try something different. Also, this was for a school assignment, so what you're going to end up seeing is the steps that we had to take to get from the beginning to this point. This is where we started. We had to create 30 silhouettes. I used a program called Alchemy, and it's a great program. It has a symmetry function, and you can use that to create symmetrical characters. You don't have to use it. Like you can see, some of these don't have exact symmetry, but for the most part they do. So after I made the 30, I went in and picked 15 of my top favorite, and right here is the one that I went with. This uh, this silhouette. I really liked the design that I had going for it, so I went with it. So after that, we had to create some variations. I made some variations of my top three out of my top 15 that I chose. Um, Ultimately, I went with this one, the one that's closest to the original silhouette. I did some other silhouettes of her. Uh, didn't like them as much. They were not as um, you know detailed, or they didn't have as much to them. Next, I had to do some color palettes. This was also after doing value patterning. So like these are like values on top, like different values on top of different like designs. So anyways, after I chose my top, my favorite one of each of the three, I did a color palette for each one. Um, Again, I really liked the second one here. But you'll notice in the video I kind of mixed more purple into her. So it's probably actually closer to, no, it's this one right here for sure. The first one. Okay, so after that, we had to do character turnaround. So you'll notice there's some things missing, and there's some things that I took out in the illustration. Um, some purposely, some I actually forgot. But I can always go back in and add them if I feel like I need to. So front, back, profile view. These lines are to line up the head, so I knew where that was at. Let me Control H that. These were material spheres, so like we had to kind of make these spheres of what the materials would kind of look like. So like this is gold. This is for like the ribbon in her hair. Um, this is like the cloth kind of wrapping around her body, and this is like another cloth that it's like a poofy material on her arms. Um, okay, so anyways, yeah, before I got into actually making any of the stuff, let me go to thumbnails. Thumbnails are very important. This wasn't part of our assignment, but it is still very important to do it. If you don't do thumbnails, you're going to be like, you're not going to know what to do. They don't have to be super detailed. These are, I actually did a lot more than these. These are just my 3 favorite. But these only took 10 minutes apiece. I didn't spend any more time on it. They were just to get my idea down. So I, ultimately I picked the first one, and I didn't want to do perspective. I know how to do it, but it would have just taken way too long. So I built it in, a 3D program, built a scene, lit it, rendered it out, and threw it on my canvas, traced over it, and I also ended up drawing, details that weren't actually in the 3D scene. This was just to get the primitive objects in there so that I could paint over it. So that pretty much is where I'll, play the video. It's gonna pick up a little after where I had her completely drawn. I did some recording and my computer crashed, or something happened to it, and I lost a lot of files. Luckily, I had a screenshot, or rather a JPEG work in progress of it, so I didn't lose a whole lot. I just kind of had to retrace over her so that I had that line drawing. But yeah, I'm gonna play the video now, and you're gonna basically just listen to my rambling or play some of your own music, so you don't have to listen to my annoying voice. Okay, so you can see I went into the thumbnail process. I'm just trying to get the best dramatic representation of the character. She's a necromancer, a summoner, evil spirits, skeletons, dark stuff. So I was trying to be dramatic with the lighting and the values of the entire image, and also trying to be dynamic with the pose. I didn't want just like a static pose of boringness. I go through about 10 or 12 of these. I didn't count. Alright, so yeah, right here I'm just going over and filling in the sketch with a solid selectable layer. So if I want to isolate her from the rest of the scene, or if I want to paint specifically in a selection, I'll have that selection just by making a fill layer like that. Kind of filling in the background, adding certain objects, getting the lighting and stuff vaguely how I want it. And eventually I'm just gonna stop working on the background and go back to her. You'll notice that I switch, that it goes black and white a lot. That's because I'm checking values all the time. Adding in flat colors first. I do kind of a little bit of highlights where the light's hitting on her, just to get the idea of where I want it to be. And yeah, you'll notice that I do a lot of fixing as I'm creating the entire image. Like, it's never going to be right the first time. Like, it's rare that it is. So throughout the entire process I'll be like moving things, nudging things, liquefying things. And that's okay. I mean, don't be afraid to use the liquefy tool. It's a really good thing to use and learn how to make the best use of it. Yeah, right now I'm just getting the very flat forms, not really adding too much highlights. So now I'm putting in the highlights of the face, and this is what kind of brings out the form, is where the light hits on objects. And it's really important to know the structure of face. Like, my stuff is pretty stylized, but it still follows the structure of the skull. if you don't know the structure, then you're just not going to paint anything correctly. That's, you know, you got to start with the skeleton, learn the skeleton, then learn the muscles, and then apply that knowledge to when you're rendering an image. And then, you know, you also need to learn like the colors, skin tones, like where the yellows and reds and blues go, because they're all in skin. And you notice I just moved the eyes. I wanted her to be looking at the viewer instead of straight ahead of her, in front of her, just to add a bit of interaction with the image, I suppose. And right now, just adding hair, making it look like the ribbons are kind of like squeezing it tightly. And let's see, yeah, doing some gold, because you know, as you can see, there's some sort of weird gold ornament in her hair. Filling in where there's going to be skin showing. Again, just flat colors. Now I'm filling in more flat colors throughout the entire thing. If you get motion sickness, I apologize. I rotate the canvas a lot, so like I don't have to do any weird brush strokes at a weird angle. Hands. Hands. Hands are so important. Like, they are just as important to have as they are like the face of a character, because the hands are just as expressive, and they're so complex and difficult to do. Like, sometimes it feels like you don't want to do them, but learning how to do the hands, like, it's worth it. You want to know how to do hands, or at least enough to where you can make a good expression with them. Right now I'm kind of filling in like the dark spots where the light won't be hitting, so I guess you could consider that like occlusion. This metal piece, I was playing with it, and I wasn't liking where it was going, so I just said screw it, I'm not gonna have it there. It's just silly, it serves no purpose. So I just turned it into a normal ring, as you can see, and some weird etchings in it. Just, you know, going back, adding more occlusion where the light is hitting, where it isn't hitting. Same thing with skin and underneath the boobies. Okay, so what I did here is I redrew her body within red line because the head didn't feel right. It felt like it was too far forward or too far back. I can't remember which way I shifted it. But I redrew the sketch in red so I could see how it looked, so I adjusted the head accordingly. And then going back to the hands again. You'll notice one thing like about hands especially, like if it doesn't look right and you keep trying to fix it, just don't, because you're gonna get really frustrated. So redraw the entire hand until it looks good, and that's what I just did there pretty much. Just redrew it. It's faster that way. Instead of like trying to polish a turd, just redo it. Adding some red shadows. My initial idea was to keep the image, or her skin tone warm, so I'm using more reds and yellows than I would blues. Granted, skin is translucent. Translucent? Yeah. So as it curves away from the light source, the subsurface scattering of the skin turns red, and that's why there's like red near the dark spots, like where it starts getting away from the light, and it's more yellow on the like where it's closer, where it's more facing towards the light. I added some rim light, some blue rim light. It could be an off-source light, could be coming from the back, doesn't really matter. It's just to add more form to her. Adding some yellow overlay color to brighten up the dress in certain spots. Okay, let's see. Right there, I was trying to figure out how I wanted the shadows to fall on her. Because she's in this room full of pillars, and the pillars are casting shadows across the floor, and she would be within one, or relatively close within one. Eventually, I just, instead of trying to place the shadow, I placed the light. If that makes any sense, you'll see it if it goes back. But it looks like at this point I called it good on her for now and went into actually polishing the background up a little more. And pillars, pillars, pillars. Fun. Eventually I grab a reference image for the pillars because I didn't want them just plain and flat and boring. I added some blooming light effects. That little skull there, I actually made that in Alchemy. I just brought it into Photoshop. Alchemy is really useful, I'm telling you. You should definitely get it if you don't. Adding some damage to pots. Broken pot. And adding reflections from the pillars onto the pots. They're kind of like a glossy material. Adding some debris on the floor, some cracks, blood spray, and then I'm like, oh, you know, I need to add like a dude here. So I went in, added a soldier who has been slain. Kind of just sketch him out first. Tabard, matching the symbols on those flags as well. Pushing him back, adjusting his legs, trying my best to make it look like he's leaning up against the wall. Drawing a little skeleton dude. So these are her minions. She's, you know, a summoner, necromancer, so she can summon skeletons as her fighters. Added a second skeleton. This one I pulled up a reference for because he's closer up, you'll see more detail on him. The further back one I didn't really worry too much about it, kind of just like vaguely did the shape of a skeleton. This isn't 100% accurate. It's pretty close though, like it's missing maybe 4 ribs, I think it was, and I used reference for him. I mean, for the most part, I just kind of made up the scowl in the skull, because in real life a skull is not actually like angry looking, or nor does it have like a huge freaking mouth like this one does. Just kind of adding where the light is going to be hitting the bones, sculpting his form, adding his weapon. Pretty generic weapon. I didn't really want to add anything super complicated to it. Blood spray. So you can assume maybe he's the one that killed the soldier that's in the back there. He's got a bloody weapon now. added scorch marks, so like maybe she was like shooting at something and hit the wall and missed. Some blood spatters on the ground. Maybe it was treaded through, so I kind of like used a textured brush and kind of dabbed red around it. Dirtying up the ceiling, texturing, kind of just texturing up the background a little bit, going back to her every now and then, adjusting things that I think I should. And eventually, okay, yeah, so here's the reference I found of some pillars, and I kind of just used that. And at first I was just like, oh, I'm gonna paint every single pillar. You don't have to do that. Like I didn't have to, but I wasn't thinking. I was zombie mode or robot mode, and I was just going through and painting everyone individually. And eventually, I'm just like, why am I doing? I just copy paste. I gotta make one pillar and paste it onto the other ones. Yeah, see, that's where I realized that I'm wasting time. Adding a little bit of decor on the top instead of just something plain. Kind of make them look a little fancy. As fancy as pillars can get. Adding some, so right here I was texturing, adding some texture to the cloth, making it look not just smooth cloth. Adding some more lighting effects, putting some plants into the pots. I think one of the broken one, you'll see, maybe you'll see, I don't know. I made it so like there was water spilling out. So like I kind of made the brick damp. And it looks like we're nearing the end. It's pretty much the process, guys. I mean, you know, this was over like 20 hours, I think. Normally I can do it in maybe 15, but this one I wanted to add more. I wanted to put more attention into the background than I normally do. Normally I don't do a whole detailed out background, but this time I did. So anyways, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope this added some sort of insight as to how you can go about making a painting. Again, my way is just something I just learned throughout the years doing this. You don't have to follow it, but you can if you want. A lot of times I just start out black and white first and then color it afterwards. But this time I just went straight into color. But yeah, there's a lot of steps that you didn't get to see, unfortunately, but a lot of that, you know, you'll just have to figure out on your own, just seeing what other people do. Play with filters, play with adjustment layers to get that look that you want. So thanks for watching, everybody.